Emma Corin just played your twin sister.
Yes.
Did it give you any nostalgia for Charles? Because she absolutely embodies what I think your generation Xavier really brought out, and she found that Frank Quietly art and that Grant Morrison energy. Did you get any sense memory from seeing any of the footage?
Remember that time you guys came to stay?
Two couples and their kids that meet on holiday in Italy, and they get on really well, and one couple is family professionals that live in London. They're from America. The other couple are also, well, one of them is a professional, he's a doctor, and they live on a farm in the West Country. One very rural, in touch with nature, and one very urban and very modern. Our couple who live in the country decide to invite them post-holiday to the countryside for a sample of good old English living, and then once they've got them on the farm, things start to become less comfortable, less friendly, and certain games start to be played between the couples, resulting in some really uncomfortable moments, some really cringe-worthy moments, some really icky moments, and then ultimately some really horrific moments as well.
You and I did a panel at MegaCon, Florida, right after you filmed this, and we had a whole hour talking about physicality.
Yes.
And physicality is so much a part of this character.
Yeah.
Having trained with Magnus just once, I was wondering, did the physicality help click you back into Patty, or did the accent, the speech, what did you use first in your tool set?
They're all, like, accent, speech, your voice, physicality, I think they're all the same thing. Because weirdly, when you do a different accent, I think it changes the way your mouth moves, your tongue moves, your muscles in your neck contract and decontract and all that. That is physical. That is physicality. And so sometimes doing an accent helps you feel like you've changed into something else. And it's got a ripple effect down to your toes. So I think they are all linked.
It's one thing. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I think it is one thing.
So this character has this pain behind his rage and even his joy. There's this beautiful agony he's going through. Did you find catharsis in that, getting all that out?
Look, I think I often find catharsis in just acting, in playing, in pretending to be somebody else, and try to find the human in them, even when they're completely inhumane, which Paddy often is. And that search is about expressing your empathy and your compassion, I guess, to be able to play somebody who's completely like abhorrent as a person. So it's a sort of exercise in like fake empathy.
Sure.
You're sort of stress testing your empathy every time you play an asshole.
You find out a little more about yourself.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe it just sort of resets your empathy levels, and you go like, oh no, I can do this. I can be empathetic.
We also talked at that panel about cumulative storytelling, whether it's X-Men or Sandman or these long-form stories and stuff you like that you're not in, like Battlestar and Star Trek. There's a journey of a moral compass in these larger-than-life tales.
Yeah.
How do you feel most different, and what did you discover for that moral compass in Paddy?
Oh, he doesn't have one. That is completely. If True North is the kind of the touchstone for his moral compass, or it should be, it's just you can't find it anywhere. He's just got his own moral code. It's not the same as anybody else's, and he's just he's selfish as a narcissist. He's violent, he's abusive, and he really enjoys it as well. He enjoys playing the game that he plays on others.
I have to ask a comic question because my audience will kill me, but with the current wave of everything going on, Emma Corin just played your twin sister, and I'm not sure if you've seen the film or not yet, but Cassandra Nova's. Have you seen the trailer?
I have seen the trailer, yes.
Did it give you any nostalgia for Charles? Because she absolutely embodies what I think your generation Xavier really brought out. She found that Frank Quietly art and that Grant Morrison energy. Did you get any sense memory from seeing any of the footage?
I've seen the merest snippet of what they did, and I think they did a great job from that snippet. But I also weirdly was like, when people do AI versions of what I look like, that's what I look like. I look like Emma Corin in like Instagram AI things where like they put their arm around some space and then they fill it with an AI me. I look like Emma Corin.
That's almost more scary. That's like heading towards Onslaught. That's like
crazy.
You.
It's crazy. But I can't wait to see it. I'm really, really excited.
And my last question for you, because I love that James Watkins described you as kind of the anchor. There's like this gravitational pull towards your character, and I know you were cast first, and then Scoop got brought on as kind of like the antithesis. Like there's the squirreliness to the pure charm.
Yeah.
When you guys were playing, there's so many levels to this film. There's so many moments where I was like, oh, things have to get better, and then it gets darker. Did you find when you were playing around on the day, it was like a tennis match? Like how did you guys find that balance?
No, definitely. It was look, as much as I've probably got the kind of most showy role in the film, but it survives off the back of an ensemble working well together. And one of the great things about a film like this is it has scenes that are actually long enough for the scene to take on its own life. And you start to get surprised as actors that things are happening in the scene that you didn't plan. Sometimes, a lot of films these days, the scenes are no longer than a page.
Yeah.
Every scene's a page, every scene's a page, every scene's a page, and it's kind of over before you know it. This film gave you the opportunity for the film to take over and start to kind of like work through us and surprise us, and you'd be like, oh, this is going in a weird direction. This is awesome. And it's like you're riding some wave that you're not in control of. But the weird thing about Scoot is you're saying he was brought on as the antithesis to Paddy. He is in real life much more Paddy than me. He's not abusive and psychopathic or murderous, but he's the guy that's out there hunting, building his own house, and like can fix anything, man of the woods and all that. Absolutely, 100%.
Well, you both nailed it, and it felt so real because of those waves, man. It was really special. This
Thank you.
film has lived in me. Thank you.
Thanks. Cheers, man.
It's good to see you again, man.
You too. You too.
I think what interests me about Louise, the character that I play, is navigating a space as a woman and as a mother where you know you're not being cool, and you know that everybody else is easygoing and right, and the right sort of energy and person. And she is a helicopter mom, and she has a lot of anxiety, and she's in this very uncomfortable place in her life, and she can feel herself not being the cool person in the room. And she follows her instincts to protect her family and to protect her daughter, but it's always met with this like pretty humiliating response of like she thought she was being a hero, but she actually made an enormous misstep.
I love your connection to people in this film and Happiest Season, and so many things that really brings me into the film. I've always wanted to know how you connect with your co-stars so authentically and then bring that connection to screen.
Oh, I don't know. That's nice. I guess I would rather have a nice time making a movie than not, and so I sort of ingratiate myself around the people I work with. I'm like, should we spend some more time together?
Or like life, you got to make that connection.
Would that be
really
nice?
count.
I'll come over.
Did you do that on this set in particular? Like, were there moments where you guys hung out off set?
Yeah,
and really formed a bond?
definitely. Yeah. James and Aisling and I in particular had like, many martini nights together.
Beautiful. It felt like it.
Yeah.
Now, there's so many moments in this, and I imagine in the script all the way to the screen where there's those who's right moments, especially between you and Scoot, and I love that's like a relationship.
I
Like,
know.
Who's right in this moment? Was there a moment between those character beats that you knew you wanted to play this character in the script?
Oh God, no. I mean, I if anything, I was a little bit worried that she was too passive, and that like, in the end, she does what she does. But like, I was concerned going into it about like she's quite silent and blah blah blah, and so I had a nice chat with James before we started shooting about like, I'm really interested in her silence, but I want to know that you're also interested in her silence. Not that it's like just she's absent from the scene if she's not talking, but that like her silence speaks volumes.
Yeah.
And he was as interested as I was, and that was all I needed to know.
There is an element where the silence feels like a character that I love. It's really important.
Yeah.
Now, you have a ton of amazing new films, but I love that you can pick into the world of Blade Runner. You can dive into even playing one of my favorite characters, and Princess Buttercup is maybe my favorite fictional character.
We were just talking about Princess
the
Bride.
only other person to play it. Like, that's so special.
No.
Like, that's a really unique one of one. Is
Yeah.
there anyone else that you'd love to be in the world of? Is there any sequel or franchise or genre that you'd love to play in?
I mean, blasphemy, but like would in Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion, absolutely.
Yes.
And sequel, I don't know, kind of that. Like,
That's
or
fair.
if David Lynch ever made another movie, I would love to do
Both of
anything
those,
with him ever.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Is there anything in Lynch that really speaks to you that, like, this ties into some Lynchian tones? Like, there's some really otherworldly horror here, but grounded.
Yeah.
Is that what you liked about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think this feels very Haneke to me, who's another one of my favorite directors. So like, that sort of like creeping, sort of suffocating dread feeling being watched and sort of toyed with, I love. And then Lynch. I mean, I love Wild at Heart. I think it's like 3 movies in one. It's just so bonkers and like joyful.
I loved how much I hated how I felt in this, and I loved the experience of that uncomfortability. And I was able to see it a few months back, like one of the first screenings that it's
cool.
lived with me. Like, it's in my bones. What was it like for you living through it and then watching it? Was there a decompression? Was there a closure?
Well, we did have an actor strike in the middle of it. So
It was a little longer for you.
yeah, so we had like a nice 3-month break. No, I mean, the making of the movie was really fun. Like, the people in it are really fun and lovely, and so it wasn't like I was in this sort of, panic room for 3 months. I was having a really fun time in the Cotswolds, and then finished and then moved on with my life.
Fair. James Watkins described it as the kind of finding a gravitational anchor with James, and then the diametrically opposed viewpoints with Scoot, and then you're kind of opposed to his other half. When you guys were on set, what was that balance like to make sure everyone felt like real and relatable?
I think that's just like casting like James and Scoot are such marvelous actors and like so effortlessly truthful and I don't know. And then we all just sort of liked each other. So
I think the martinis helped.
Yeah, it was martinis. Yeah.
This movie felt so real in its counter programming. I'm not much of a horror guy, so thank you for the
good.
reality of this film.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Thank
That's
you.
so cool. Bye.
It does feel like that we're doing something different with the genre and keeping this film that draws you in with these sort of relationships and sort of like the trials of couples and the struggles that they go through, that you really start to feel like you're not watching a thriller or you're not watching a horror film genre, but this idea that you get to fall and care and root for these characters, but not through a place of survival, of a place of their own inner humanity, is what's different than most horror genre films. And I feel like James Watkins and Blumhouse have done a really wonderful job at sort of encapsulating that.
Sitting down with Scoot McNairy. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Doing good. I'm excited. You always elevate work that is really tricky. The characters, whether it's the rover, killing them softly. Here, there's an earnestness that's so hard to balance. With this guy in particular, his arc involves such a squirreliness. How did you find that balance when you were first trying to play this version of him?
Really good question. I felt like the screenplay that James Watkins had written had really started this character in a really, really tough rock bottom place, being vulnerable, having complications in his marriage, feeling a little bit distant from his daughter. So all those elements, put Ben in a place. Well, you add in Patty, force of nature, his sort of character, and you're just immediately like, I want to see these two collide. And so that was something that really attracted me to the project, is watching Ben play this sort of, or seeing Ben play this vulnerable character that actually ends up finding strength within all of his weaknesses.
Yeah.
Was something that I hadn't done before. I played some vulnerable fathers in the past, but this one was different for me, and it's all more so James Watkins in the screenplay that he wrote and the direction that he took it.
That dichotomy is so strong, and I love that his inherent coolness makes you kind of judge yourself, especially you're kind of our eye line. Is there a moment in that script where you found like, there's my guy, like that's me, I know how to find him?
No, I feel great question, but it was more of like him looking at Patty and thinking, okay, I want to be more, if I could just be more and more like this guy, more masculine, more charismatic, all those things, then it would inevitably fix the problems that he has in his marriage and with his daughter and at his job he starts out at. But in that process, he ends up finding out so much more about himself and the challenges that he's taken, and he also learns that the guy that he's trying to emulate is not really the guy he says that he is at all.
Is there anything that surprised you in that emulation? I imagine like osmosis happens day to day. We always kind of mirror who we're around. Mm-hmm. Was there a moment that surprised you coming off of Patty that you hadn't planned to start to emulate?
No, but what did surprise me is the way that James McAvoy played with those moments, and the way he teased them and the subtleties that he gave to make you feel a little bit uncomfortable, but not uncomfortable enough to say something. I really enjoyed watching James McAvoy toe that line in those scenes because I had a front row seat to it. So it was really, he was just so great in it.
How did you guys find that bond? Was it lots of rehearsals? Was it days on set? Like there is a real connection there between the two of you, and especially you're so diametrically opposed from the jump. How did you find that connection? Because it feels really real.
I think there was a true, great question. I was fascinated with James McAvoy's performance, genuinely.
Yeah.
So it left very little work for me to do because you were, as a person and an actor, leaning into all these things that he was doing. And James McAvoy is an incredibly magnetic individual with incredible charisma. It's really hard not to fall into his tractor beam, So as the character, I think you're just sort of watching that actually play out in real time when watching the movie because of all the colors that he shined with the masculinity and his charisma. all that stuff. You're sort of watching Ben in real time be mesmerized by it from take to take.
Well, I loved hating the way I felt with you as my eyeline. I love that vulnerability that was so masculine. Was there any one moment that, my last question for you, that you really felt when you watched the final product that you had really loved in the script that you wanted to convey and you saw on screen and felt like that was the Ben you wanted to bring out?
I couldn't take credit for it because it's something James Watkins came up with, but the finding the strength and resistance of not falling into something, that moment at the very end when he resists the thing that James's character wants him to do. James Watkins has told me that there is strength and weakness of finding, being a good father, being a good husband, and being a man that fights for his family, but I didn't really feel that until we had shot that final scene of what that really meant to Ben and what James Watkins was really trying to portray in the film.
It's beautiful, man. It's so unique. I really appreciate it. I love this work.
Awesome, man.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I'm Coy Jandreau here with The Real Rejects. I'm here with the director, James Watkins.
Hey.
I was just saying this movie is counter-programming for me, and the horror thriller elements were so beautiful because there was such a human nature to the character. And I was really wondering, with each unique personality in the film, there's a moment where you really understand and justify all their decisions. There was no one running up the stairs when they shouldn't. There was no one really making a decision where you'd be like, come on. What did you do when going through the script as you were developing it, or even on the day directing it, making sure there was never an unbelievable moment that removed us from that plausible deniability?
Well, because it's, for me, whether you call it horror or thriller, whatever, the films that I like the most are, exactly as you say, the ones that are most relatable. Where you go, it's real people doing real things.
Yeah.
Not movie people,
Yeah.
And I wanted to maintain that. And also because it's really a four-hander or a six-hander with the kids, you're very tight with these people and there's an intimacy there. So if you've got an opportunity there to get to know them and to explore their different facets. And so if you don't take that opportunity, you're missing one, I suppose. So yeah, I just wanted to dig in and explore them. And then when we got into rehearsal with the cast, we dug in a bit deeper. I'm quite loose in how I do stuff. So I'm like, nothing is gospel because I'm writing. It's like, guys, I'll write that out. I'll rechange that. For example, James and Aisling had a thing where James started finishing some of his lines. And as that couple had both their thing. And so he'd go, it was James' idea. He goes, why don't we give that second half of my line to Aisling as though it's what they do as a couple? They, it's brilliant. And so I go, yeah.
That's
it was a
directive.
gift. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah. And it actually, and it breaks up the speech. It makes it more flowing. Yeah. But it also has a psychological, like their sort of con artistry, their double act, their closeness, their intimacy, all those sorts of things. So it's a constant process of being on alert. And when you work with actors of that quality, I think my film was so much more elevated by having such brilliant actors. And we excavated the few on set, if you know what I mean.
I love that you were able to be loose with it because that made it more real and relatable.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering the casting process. There's a few moments in the film where the roller coaster drops and I'm thinking like, maybe we're okay. Everything's going to be fine. And I love that feel. And I feel like a lot of that is from it being a four-hander. I care about everyone enough. Yeah. And the casting, the diametrically opposed way McAvoy is cool and the squirreliness of Scoot. Yeah. When you were developing the decision to cast the way you did you know you needed them to be such a juxtaposition in order to flow?
Yeah, and it all starts with James, right? So the first person I cast was James. I knew I needed to get my Paddy because everyone was going to be kind of if he's the son, everyone's...
Sure, gravitational.
Yeah, gravitational, yeah. So, I went to James, I wrote it kind of with James in mind. John Harris, who cut the movie, has done about 5 or 6 movies, edited with James in, and I've worked with John for 20 years, and it was like, we were both going, it's got to be McAvoy. He's the guy. And wouldn't that be a dream? And usually you don't get the dream. It's, people never say that when they're doing press. Right. But you know what I mean? It's true.
You don't find out who it was really written for.
Yeah, people go, oh, it was always about him. And you go, you're lying. But I'm not lying. It was really about him, and we sent it to James, and he read it and responded, and I went to his house in London and had a cup of tea, and we chatted about it. So it was that. And then, exactly as you say, once you got him, I'm like, okay. So Scoot was the next person they cast, because I was like, Scoot so brilliantly underplays everything, and so then it's like, okay, that's going to be an interesting tension, because James is going to have to go big and go out there. So he's going to know, James is so smart as an actor, he knows that he's going to have to stay in the same movie as Scoot, because if he doesn't, it's going to be weird. And so and so Mackenzie, it was like,
okay, how do they feed off each other as a relationship, and then it was Aisling, and so just building the pieces.
That's beautiful. So you've got gravity and anchors, and that makes the film feel as real as it does.
Yeah.
I so appreciate it. It's all the time I got. Thank you.
Oh man,
this movie has lived in my bones, and I really appreciate.
I love it. Well, please spread the good.
Oh,
word.
absolutely. I can't stop talking about it. Thank you so much.